Today is October 8th, 2025. This week marks the anniversary of the Great Chicago Fire of October 8th to the 10th, 1871, one of the most devastating urban disasters in American history. The inferno destroyed more than 3 square miles of the city, left nearly 100,000 people homeless, and killed about 300 residents. Yet while the city burned, another kind of fire spread even faster, a fire of blame and prejudice. Immigrant communities, especially the Irish, were scapegoated almost immediately. Chicago at the time was an industrial boomtown, filled with immigrants from Ireland, Germany, Scandinavia, Poland, and Bohemia. They built the city's railroads, worked in the stockyards, and lived in its most crowded combustible neighborhoods. But when the disaster struck, it was easier for frightened residents and city leaders to blame the poor and foreign-born than to admit that lax fire codes, wooden infrastructure, and greed-fueled overbuilding had made catastrophe inevitable. Within days, newspapers had their villain. The story spread that the Great Fire began when Catherine O'Leary, an Irish immigrant woman, accidentally set her barn ablaze after her cow kicked over a lantern. She was never charged, and decades later, the reporter who invented the story confessed it was fiction. But the legend stuck because it played perfectly into existing anti-Irish, anti-Catholic, and classist stereotypes. The O'Learys were poor, foreign, and Catholic, easy targets for a city eager to find a single human culprit instead of confronting systemic negligence. Political cartoons mocked Mrs. O'Leary as a careless drunkard. Editorials condemned ignorant immigrants who brought ruin upon us. Even as the city rebuilt, the social fire smoldered on, fueling housing segregation and employment discrimination that lasted generations. More than 150 years later, Chicago once again finds itself under siege, not from flames, but from another kind of inferno, xenophobia cloaked as law enforcement. The Trump administration has flooded the city with Homeland Security personnel, ICE and CBP agents, and National Guard troops, including soldiers from Illinois and Texas. The justification is the same kind of fear-mongering that lit the spark in 1871, a claim that immigrants, especially the undocumented, are the source of Chicago's supposed lawlessness. The president has called for mass roundups and accused the mayor and governor of protecting criminals, despite the fact that federal crime data shows Chicago doesn't even rank among the top 20 U.S. cities in violent crime per capita. Just as Catherine O'Leary became a convenient scapegoat for a fire she didn't cause, today's immigrants are being cast as villains for problems they didn't create. The administration's narrative that Chicago's safety depends on deporting immigrants mirrors the same old story of blame. When things feel out of control, accuse those who are easiest to dehumanize. The people being targeted now are largely families, refugees, and longtime residents, many of them LGBTQ also, fleeing persecution in countries where their lives were already in danger. Chicago's own history should warn us of the damage that comes when fear triumphs over truth. The Great Fire taught the city that real danger often lies not in a single spark, but in the dry kindling of neglect, inequality, and division. To repeat the mistakes of 1871, to let fear consume compassion, and to scapegoat those without power is to invite another kind of conflagration. A city rebuilt from ashes once before should know better than to burn its conscience again.